those are the things that with AI, we haven't quite figured out yet. We don't know when that chirp means stop or watch.
Freight doesn't move in silos, and neither should the conversation. Welcome to The Freight Table, a monthly podcast from the Intermodal Association of North America, connecting data, government affairs, and voices from across the intermodal supply chain. This is your pulse on what's changing now and what to watch next, where intermodal comes together.
So what I'm going to do is I just want to have a short conversation kind of talking about your engagement around this project, a little background on what you do and why it matters, and how you use AI, and then kind of how you see that your work in AI can kind of be important to looking at the entire freight supply chain, just kind of the difference it makes and kind of where you think AI is heading for the industry.
Let me share one other piece of information with you, if I could, before we start the meeting, because it's something that you're not currently aware of, because it literally just happened this morning. I was invited to participate in ASTM's formation of a brand new committee called AI in Manufacturing. And because I participated in the initial formation of the committee, they've asked me to be on the formation of the committee as the founding group. So
that's fantastic.
Thank you. It's called F50, but it's AI in manufacturing. And it is all about the different ways that AI can be used, very similar to the things that Chris was talking about, and that he asked me to participate in this as a subject matter expert. And I didn't share this with him, but I kind of knew that F49 was formed, and we were told you can't use AI because it's against the policy of ASTM. And then about 6 months ago, they came out and said, we're thinking about forming a new group called AI in Manufacturing. I was like, I'm in. I want to be on the team for that one. That's anyway,
awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That is really exciting. And I hope, and I know you will share your findings and what you're up to as our AI project progresses.
Well, I think the government, our government is thinking right now about what do we need to have in place for these AI regulations, which makes, standards really relevant. It makes industry work really relevant. And it's really like public-private partnerships that need to have the foundation of where they're going to meet and get together. And it's just good to be at the table.
It is. It's so great to be. First of all, it's great to have a table to have a conversation, especially of this magnitude, because I think it really is. It is an absolute game changer, right? Because it's not only affects our professional lives, but it also impacts our personal lives, and how we interact with everything we do. So it's a much bigger societal kind of issue than just how we manufacture or how we produce or how we ship. It is much greater than that.
And change happens so quickly these days, David. I mean, people can adopt new technologies and new platforms in very quick order, and the cycle of change is upon us. I mean, it
is, and it's exponential, right? I mean, that's I remember that old chart where just the rate of change, as you were just saying, it goes like this. It's no longer, doesn't take time. It happens, somewhat instantaneously.
It does. And then the error rates are hard to be able to capture, right? The exceptions going by at such a faster pace than they used to before, used to have humans in the loop to be able to catch every one of them. But now, AI fixes it, but doesn't necessarily fix the root cause of it. It doesn't make the phone call back to the person saying, hey, you didn't format this data exactly how we're best at receiving it. So maybe in the future, those are things to work on as time goes by. Exactly.
It takes care of it for us, and we don't think about our own mistakes. That's a little troubling.
A little. Especially when we're a species that's accustomed to being able to advance from experience. If we don't get the experience and we just get the outcome, it's kind of like when dad tells you to go do something. You're going to do the opposite anyway.
And you never learn the lesson, right? You just keep repeating it. Without any consequences, because it's all been fixed for you.
That's right.
It's the world we always dreamed of as a kid, kind of like, well, I don't want to have to learn that because somebody else will just do it for me.
Yeah, but that doesn't work out so well. I
No,
think, we're still writing the rules for what that's going to look like, and it's going to be very interesting to watch it all unfold.
I completely agree, and I am just so excited for all of your participation in all of this, and especially for you and your contributions to this work. So, to back up is, you were so kind when Chris approached you to participate in this project. Why did you think it was important to have this discussion at this time?
So exploring and experimenting with AI is really important, to be able to see if there is value and where that is and how much you can squeeze out of it. But I'm a big believer in technology and systems, but I've realized over years that garbage in produces garbage out. And we needed to have a certain amount of guardrails and common language. And my work in the standards bodies was something that I felt we had spent a lot of time there to be able to align on those foundational things. And Chris was actually really clear with me that that's what he wanted me to help bring was what are the common terms and what are the common separations that we can describe so that we can come to some common understanding of events and then feed that into the AI work. And I think it wasn't overwhelming, but it was useful. It was helpful for people to be able to frame it in that happens before it moves, that happens during the movement side, or that happens afterwards. And if we can get to those understandings across industry, we would make progress well beyond that we have in, the past 50 years of trying to digitize the industry.
And do you think that AI is going to force those conversations that people have been unwilling or hesitant to have?
So I think it's already forcing those conversations. I think there are experiences that I've seen where there's legacy 30-year employees that are working in companies doing repeatable tasks that their management now thinks that they can just go get AI to be able to do that task for them. And there is a balance of being able to have the human in the loop and the AI in the loop. And just like we don't try to build technology to do everything for everybody all the time, you build technology for places where you can receive expected results of improvement from the adoption and use of that technology. I mean, a calculator doesn't tell you the answer until you put inputs into it, but the inputs that you put in give you an accurate and predictable output. And I think that's what you got to kind of look at with, implementing and endorsing tools is the fact that you're going to get some sort of a predictable outcome. And at the moment with AI, we don't have that. The outcome is almost better than we think it could possibly be. And then it's like, do I really trust that? Does it really know that much? Or what parts of this were, hallucinated? And that's the hard part, is the needle in the haystack is a dagger in the haystack. And you don't know where it is in the haystack, and it can cut your hand off if you're not aware. So you don't want it to get too far away from human in the loop.
And I think that really is, and I think it's interesting because I think intermodal has the reputation of being a very relationship-based mode where, you can pick up the phone and you can get someone on the other end. They'll help you, tell you where your freight is, what's going on. And I think that there's kind of a fear that AI would be looking to replace all of that human interaction. And yet, as you just said, I think it really does reinforce the importance of that human interaction, that that there is somebody behind the AI still kind of paying attention to make sure that it's actually doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Sensor data was similar, right, Dave? When we started to experience sensor data, then we say, well, here's the outer thresholds and the min and max that it should be in, and then you get a reading that's 25 degrees outside of that. Is that an anomaly, or do I act upon that, right? Is it just a bad data reading that was there, or do I need 3 of those bad data readings in a row to be able to act on it? And those are the things that with AI we haven't quite figured out yet. We don't know, when that chirp means stop or watch. And they're two different actions of what to be able to do. And, the noise is still a noise. We just got to be able to figure out how to respond best to the signal that's coming from each of those little chirps.
What do you think, and having done this project, been in these meetings, what do you think has most surprised you about this process that you've just gone through, this chapter 1?
I don't know if this is going to be the answer you're looking for, but I
want it to be your answer.
Yeah. When I first looked at the project scope, I thought we were going to try to use AI to be able to iterate more about what the prompts were. And there's several ways that you could condition these sort of, experiments where you choose the topic and then you iterate within that topic, or you can iterate from the very beginning. And we chose, the goods movement process of a intermodal movement from one place to another place that's got numerous touches to it, and stayed pretty high level with what the kind of the chunks of what those things were and where there were opportunities for AI to come in. We could have used AI to iterate earlier on in the project and not been so focused on just one area. We could have said to the AI, you've identified these as the areas that had the highest ROI. Let's focus on those areas with a micro project that is focused on. We didn't do that. We stayed very committed to the overall goods movement process and iterated on the content that was within there, but stayed within the scope. And I bring it up because I just think there's more than one way to run a project, depending on what you're trying to be able to achieve.
Sure,
and in this case,
sure.
Andy did a really good job of getting us to the deadline of this event to do the first iteration of this story, so that we can then go back to the starting line, learn what was done, explain it to the group, and then really come up with what do we want to do for version 2, as opposed to doing as much iteration as we could have done at the beginning. So I bought into the structure that Sandy had proposed to be able to do this. And I thought it was great that she had subject matter experts that were feeding valuable insight into the early stages to be able to refine from a human perspective, but then still used the AI to be able to incorporate each of those new inputs.
That's a great answer. And I had no presupposed answer for you. So I appreciate your honesty and putting it out.
I like Sandy a lot. I think she's a real value to a team as far as being able to lead messaging. And in this case, she was the person for the job to be able to do this. Because if they'd asked me to do it, we'd have had a different outcome. But
yeah, she's a neutral party. She's a neutral party.
She was perfect for this. Just perfect for being able to do this job.
Yep. And I really think what you all developed and she put into physical form in that document is really impressive. And I really am excited about tomorrow's meeting to see kind of what the actual reaction is to it from our membership.
I hope there's some recording of it. I'd love to be able to get some of those reactions. From the event itself, that you can't go recreate that stuff, so
no, you can't. It's a moment in time. I don't think we have any recording. I'll try to maybe take a little video, just pan the audience as the presentation is going on, and maybe get some of the Q&A and be able to send it to you. But
I would love that. I'm sorry I couldn't make this. I have to go to Africa later in the week on Thursday, and I didn't know if I was leaving on the 4th or on the 7th, and I just couldn't commit to being in two places at the same time. So
no, that is okay. We've taken enough of your time. You're we understand completely. Are you going to Africa for work or for fun?
For work, actually. I have a background in networking, and there's a church campus that has 5 different campuses in Lagos area in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. They have spotty power, spotty internet, and it's a luxury for people to be able to have internet access. So they have this headquarter campus where they bring in like 6 times a year, 20 to 30,000 people to be able to do events there. And they collect donations from these people, but without cellular connectivity, without satellite, they can't collect the donations. So we're
Wow.
installing 11 Starlink devices with an entire network across their campus to be able to make it an oasis at Lagos to be able to have internet access basically as much as they could want.
That is very cool.
It's really cool, David. The Starlink devices come now in their most recent version with the ability to network 4 of them together, and we've discovered a way that we could network 11 of them.
Wow, they're going to have some coverage.
We've almost 3 times the coverage area that was initially specified by Starlink to be able to do.
That's amazing. That sounds like
we can't wait to do it.
What a neat project. What a neat project. You kind of articulated it, but that's just a final question. Kind of where, I know that, we're looking at this next chapter when we're looking for direction and input from members, but I think that you articulated earlier, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think that you sense that, we need to go and look at the before of the container and the movement and the activities that happen before it actually arrives on shore, because there's a lot of opportunities there. Is that, you think, the best? Do you think that's I don't want to say best, is that like the lowest hanging fruit that you would think that we should go for next, if that is the direction in which folks would like to go? Or do you think that that's post kind of the actual movement of the box ends, and it's kind of the reporting afterwards?
So I think
just curious.
Those are 2 directions, right? Of the fact that we kind of started in the middle with being able to say, this is the goods and process of a container and the actual movements that take place. But there is a planning section that happens beforehand where all of the approvals and stakeholders and costs are agreed to. And then there is an afterwards where there is a reconciliation process and a comparison of those early commitments to actuals of what took place. Both are very important to the overall function of intermodal and of multimodal goods. If I really zoom out, though, David, and I look at this like from a global perspective and strategically of global trade of what's happening, the United States needs to be able to have control of all freight that's moving domestically here in the United States and across Canada and Mexico. We need to have understanding of what those movements are at a much better granular level than is currently processed centrally at the moment. And before anything comes into our country, it should have a plan that would work for domestically of this is how it works. And this is how it's going to move. And this is the plan and the flight path that it's going to go on to be able to be completed successfully. We don't have that today. We don't have any place near that today.
Yeah.
And that won't require the piece that we talked about during this AI project. That will require the first third. That will require the identification of the shipment and the container that it's in and the origin and the stakeholder and the time and the next move that's scheduled and where it is mid-flight. Because we are mid-flight when it's something that's going multi-global, and we can impart our own rules on those goods that come into our country by saying, CBP is going to verify like this and initiate this clearance. And, those rules can be enforced effectively if they're consistent. And I think that organizations like IANA can help policy get set to be consistent for those domestic movements, so that anything that's coming in through any of the 360 ports has a same starting point for the domestic multimodal moves.
I think that would be phenomenal. I think you're absolutely right. I think that, IANA does have a role to play, an essential role, to help in that, because I think that you're absolutely correct. I think to really, to actually put a plan in place and to make it effective, is you're absolutely right, is there has to be that planning that's done in advance of the container arriving on the shores, know exactly where it's going and how it's going to go.
Yeah.
And I think that's beneficial to everyone, because that's equipment positioning, that's customs, that's getting it off the terminal before detention and demurrage sets in. That's all that planning.
It's every one of those touches from what's the total cost of ownership and what's the total price that it took to do this. And David, I feel like the place that this has kind of all fallen apart is in the 49 CFR 371.3, which is the regulation that requires property brokers to be able to be transparent with what their costs are and who they paid what to. And historically, they have gotten a waiver at the moment of purchase to be able to not have to provide that transparency. And, when you take a cab or an Uber or an air flight, you get a receipt afterwards that says this is what it costs and this is what your fees were. And for some reason in the trucking business, we haven't enforced that. In the rail industry, we haven't enforced that. And I think that has really damaged the trust between stakeholders in these parties and made it so that opportunistic, greedy business partners, business employees are making decisions that are impacting commercial decisions between companies. And they may be doing it because it's their bonus next month that they're going to get based off of the number of loads that they made X number of hundreds of dollars from, but they're destroying business relationships by being able to make their little piece here and taking more than what is their portion because there's not accountability. And if there's not enforcement and visibility into that, the potential for that exposure is too great for the 39 different vectors of where there is a potential for threat to be able to not have somebody take advantage of it. And that's what breaks trust.
Yeah. Well, and absolutely. And then, you actually, you hit a very common theme, which is that visibility. That is, you need to be able to see and understand what's happening to the freight movement throughout the chain. Who are the actors? What are they doing to it? When are they doing it? Where is it delayed? And the costs associated with that. And I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, I think that's a huge trust is paramount. I mean, that's, again, going back to the kind of one of the pillars of intermodalism is that you have to trust your partners. You have to hope that they are looking out and working for your best interests and not taking more than they should out of the relationship, and actually putting, equally thinking about your freight as their freight, that it's important enough for you to maintain that business relationship. So I think that's great insight.
The interesting part that you were talking about of, the before and the after side of this, the after side is the consequence of those trusted relationships, being enforced. I don't think that's going to be as easy of a place for IANA to be effective as it is in the policy side, where IANA could literally communicate very effectively to the federal government, to the Surface Transportation Board. Listen, we have members. We have stakeholders. We know who these participants are, and they have a voice, and it needs to be heard, and we can help to be able to communicate what the public-private partnership came up with after reviewing this and using AI and the human in the loop. Don't forget us as the humans that have access to many of those stakeholders that are involved in this. Have us at the table. Let us be a part of what the solution is at the beginning in the planning side, and the financial side will work its way out with the transparency at the end.
Mm-hmm. And that's where we do our best work, is when we're not down in the weeds, because that's not where we belong. We belong, as you just said, on the policy side, much more so.
On the policy side, at the very front end of this. I think Ann is well respected in that regard with the Surface Transportation Board and the Federal Maritime Commission. And, she was a great choice for your organization as well for going into what this future is going to be. And I think Anna's got an important role.
I couldn't agree more. Michael, I'm going to let you go. I so appreciate our conversation and appreciate your working through the technical difficulties with me. And I look forward to hearing about your trip to Africa when you return.
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing some video from you after the presentation tomorrow. So please do put those up and make some good posts about the story that we did. I'll amplify it to my group. I mean, I have like 6,000 followers on.
Wow. Then I will definitely make sure that you're tagged.
Push it along.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks.
Thanks. You too. Take care.